want to get us started, my friend?
Absolutely. We've had the absolute best day in between sessions, having interactive conversations with you all after such amazing talks. And we really wanted to share with you some things that really stood out to the people that joined us. One of those things is that all identity is political for power. It's commodified for wealth, and it's constructed. We build it as we go. And with keeping those things in mind, it helps us build transitional stories where we not only focus on like how we're moving forward, how we're telling stories that don't have ends, but also naming things that are powerful, our land acknowledgements, our understanding our history so that we can better reframe and reshape for the future. And also, I think a big takeaway that we heard from a lot of people is that we are story sharers, not storytellers. So be very clear about how people want to tell their stories. And a key tip that we heard from Amy Lynn Smith is ask, is there something I haven't asked? It is really such a powerful question. And now over to Erin.
Yeah, thanks. And when Amy Lynn shared that in the discussion that we were having in the interactive, Erin and I both were like nodding vehemently because, as you know, folks who came out of the J school at UF, we both were trained to ask that, what haven't I asked you that I should have, you know, and to open the world up in a way that recognizes we don't have all of the perspectives and we don't even know all the questions. And so really being thoughtful about that. So Erin, thank you for sharing those big takeaways. Liz, you have some thoughts there, yeah?
To say, I love that because it ties into the listening portion also. You don't know what you shouldn't be asking if you weren't focused and really hearing what someone is saying. So I feel like all of the intersections of our takeaways have been really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And every conversation or interview I've conducted where I've closed with, you know, what haven't I asked you that you wish I had or that I should have, that's usually where you get the richest stuff. You know, it really is. You get the anecdote that you didn't know to ask for. You get the, oh, by the way, that's just good. That's just really good stuff. So we were curious to hear not only the big takeaways that folks had from the, you know, just broadly the sessions today, but also those things that felt like, wow, I need to go back and tell this to every single person I work with, or we need to take this and etch it into a stone tablet somewhere for everybody in our field to know. And so there were a number of things that really kind of came to that level that we heard from a lot of you, either from a lot of folks or very passionately from a handful of folks, I will say. Folks had a deep appreciation and for Anne's opening reflection of us thinking about stories as vessels of culture. We all know how powerful culture can be and how it shapes us and moves us. So thinking about that power and naming it really resonated with everyone, so that we're thinking about storytelling not as an afterthought, like we put a really smart strategy together and then we go find some stories, but that we are intentionally baking storytelling and the listening that comes with good storytelling and story sharing together in that strategy. And that's the second thing that Erin mentioned it as well, is really beginning to look at ourselves as story sharers versus storytellers, and recognizing that that's going to be an exercise of many voices. There was also some interesting reflection on sort of the logistics of that, the process of that it's not just the words we're pulling together, but it's who we give tools to. Do we put cameras in the hands of different people so that they capture stories in different ways? How do we make sure that we're putting those processes together so different people are on social media? All of that collectively. And then just a couple of other reflections around how we shape stories. Breaking out of that construct of recognizing someone just as a hero or just as a villain, and getting into all the beautiful messiness and complexity of story. So really thinking about that. And as we do, intentionally, specifically asking individuals, what are you comfortable sharing? Not assuming that someone wants to dive into a narrative at the exact point we want them to, and really being thoughtful about that. Please, yeah.
And I would also say, not assuming that one person is going to give you a full, complete story in it, right? To really be thinking about people's capacities of giving stories. And I think also the comments were very good. I went back and looked at the chat and people talking about ways to also be the architect of the storyteller and not making sure they're being re-triggered, that they're being harmed, you know, making sure that that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's such a good point for us to wrap on, because the other point of view that we've had a lot of really powerful discussion about today is recognizing the emotional labor that's invested in the crafting and the sharing of those stories, and how we need to acknowledge that. And we need to support that. We need to recognize if we're paying people, if we're providing therapy, if we're having really thoughtful conversations with each other about that emotional labor, because there's a lot more that goes into those stories. The reliving, when people want to experience something, when they don't want to experience it again by sharing. So that, again, I think it really comes down to that intention and the complexity that we all have to be willing to embrace.
Absolutely. Compensate and support your storytellers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100%. And check in with them afterwards, you know, because I think things can come up and in maybe not in the moment. Also, the ramifications of when that story is told. What
That's right.
happens? Do trolls come? Is somebody being protected and guarded throughout the entire process of after the story is being told,
Absolutely.
and what that means? So
Mhm.
thank you. These are such great takeaways, and I'm so excited for y'all to be doing this tomorrow as well. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow.